I tend to get a little emotional sometimes. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So before we get started, I have some thank yous I have to say. Thank you to MAWA and the whole wrestling community. Never thought in my whole life that this would happen, so thank you. A lot of them aren't here today. I want to thank my teammates. JPV said it perfect. It takes a village. It's not just one person. And we were friends on the mat, friends off the mat, and we hung out all the time. My senior year, just to tell you what kind of team I had, in regional finals, there's 14 weight classes. We had 12 in finals alone, and at states it was 7. Just incredible, and I wish I could say that I did it all. I didn't. It was my team and being able to have them there for the support. So even though they're not here, I want to thank them as well. I want to thank everybody who was involved, even coaches from other teams. I don't know how many times, just starting from Pee Wee all the way up to high school, how they took the time out of their day, their morning, to come up to me and say, "Hey, Travis, how are you? How's your season going? What are you wrestling this year? What weight?" Just, you have no idea how much that support meant to me, and I couldn't wait to get to these wrestling meets, not just to wrestle, but to see everybody. And it's just the community that we've built here. And walking in here today, there's some faces I haven't seen for years, and it's like I just saw them yesterday. And it's just an amazing group. Before thanking my coaches, I just want to thank a few people who are here today. So as you know, I started at the age of 4 wrestling. Now, if you asked 4-year-old Travis, "Hey, are you going to be standing up here being inducted into the Hall of Fame?" I would have said, "No, I'm going to be catching frogs and catching snakes somewhere," right? So I never thought that this would ever happen. Eric Harvey happened to be my coach back then. I'm sure you remember me running around with no wrestling shoes and my socks, just probably just going crazy out on the mat. My 8th grade year, as Tim said, I won a state championship. It was Pine Tree League state championship, and I remember talking to Zach Schallbarger, guy I graduated with, lifetime friend, and we couldn't wait to get to high school to maybe place at states our junior year. That was our thought process. We were like, "Hey, can you imagine getting to states our junior year and maybe placing like 4th or 3rd, and hopefully our senior year we can get maybe a 2nd place." Can you imagine how crazy that would be? And it seemed like I blinked, and I was wrestling for my first state title as a freshman. And I never thought in 1,000 years I'd ever be there. So thank you, Eric, for coaching me through all those years. I tend to remember a lot of different statements and events in my life that have stuck with me and that still stick with me today. So, Kevin, I don't know if you remember ever saying this to me. So, my 8th grade year, I weighed 138 pounds. My freshman year, I was just shy of 180, and I was 14 years old. And I was nervous because I was wrestling a big weight class. And they brought Kevin in, and I'm wrestling with Kevin, and Kevin's beating me up pretty good. And he goes, "Hey," because I was trying to muscle everything, and I was trying to just not wrestle you do remember this, I was not wrestling my kind of match. And Kevin goes, "Hold on, wait. Listen, you're a 14-year-old kid wrestling in a big weight class. Instead of wrestling with your strength, why don't you wrestle with finesse? Why don't you use your speed and use your technique? You'll find that you'll have a good career if you do that." I took that to heart, and through high school, through college, I never cared about being the strongest person on the mat. I mean, I lifted weights my whole life, but I didn't care about that. I wanted to be faster. I wanted to be smoother. I wanted to be way more technical. And I've heard some people say that I've wrestled like a lightweight at 189 pounds. It's because of you, Kevin, for giving me that little piece of advice, so thank you. Moving forward, Aaron James, Thank you for coming into the room and rolling with me. So before I knew who Aaron James was, I came to wrestling practice one day. What was it, my sophomore year? Junior year? You remember? So that
How many odds of ibuprofen?
So I get to the wrestling room one day, and there's a guy standing there, about my weight, with muscles poking out of him everywhere. You were huge back then, still are. Well, I see this guy standing there, and he's absolutely huge. I remember asking Mike, I said, hey, who's that guy? He goes, oh, he's from Calais. So instantly I'm like, ooh, he stayed back a few years. That, or they just found him on the woodlot somewhere up there in Calais. But Aaron, you don't know this, but wrestling with you years ago, one thing that I always struggled with was big, strong people. Not just big, strong people, people who could handle themselves at that weight and that strength. And wrestling with you back then, you taught me how to persevere through that. So thank you. Thank you, Mike Rollerson. I grew up with his son ever since we were in diapers. Mike's been there throughout my whole career. Mike, one thing that people didn't know on the sidelines is Mike worked 18 years of nights and still made it to every single wrestling meet, still made it to practices. Not a lot of people knew that about Mike, because Mike is a very humble person. And instead of putting that out there, he was always just there for us. He was always just big support system. And thank you. Thank you, Tim, for presenting the award today.
I have one more thing to say that just needs to be heard. Travis has a career record of 181 wins and 9 losses.
Thank you. So, thank you for that, Tim. So Tim was the head coach. Mike was the assistant coach when I was in high school, and I believe it was you, Tim, who taught me the fireman's and the arm fire leg, wasn't it? And that was my bread and butter all through high school. And that, aside with the low single, those are what I used as my takedown combo. So thank you. The other coaches growing up, Scott and Neil Wood, they're not here today, but they're a big part of it as well. So I want to thank them as well. Mike Cummings. So those of you who already know, Mike was a huge part of my success. From sending us to wrestling camps to just taking us out of state, welcoming us into your home to watch wrestling videos, just everything. And without you, I couldn't have done it, so thank you. See, I told you, everybody. Moving into my wrestling career and where it's led me to today. So, my freshman year, again, I started my year off at 171 pounds. I ended up cutting to 160. And it was a rough year for me because I was 14 years old, still hadn't grown, 160 pounds, but I hadn't really grown into that 160 pounds. And didn't really have a whole lot on my mind except getting through each match that presented itself. And I remember I placed second at KVACs that year. I had just won the regional tournament as a freshman. And that's when it dawned on me what I was coming into my freshman year. And I remember it was a Wednesday or Thursday. And I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. I didn't think I was ready. I wasn't practicing hard enough. I was being really hard on myself. I was a 14-year-old kid wrestling 17, 18-year-olds. And Mike recognized that. And he came up to me, and Mike used to always come up when we had a problem. He'd cross his arms, poke us right in the chest. He goes, "What's the matter with you?" And I went, "Mike, I haven't trained hard enough." I was like, "I'm not ready for this. I haven't trained hard enough." And Mike looked at me with a smile, and all he says is, "You're ready. You're the readiest you'll ever be." Do you remember that? He knew my potential before I knew it. And I think a lot of other people did as well. And ever since then, whenever I don't think I'm ready for something, I think of those words. Like, I'm as ready as I'll ever be. Because personally, with me, I train as hard as I can for whatever I do. So thank you. Some things that the sport of wrestling has taught me throughout the years, as you heard, I work for the Waldo County Sheriff's Office. I've been a police officer for 9 years now. And I used to work for the Belfast Police Department. I'm a K-9 officer for the county of Waldo. And my wrestling career, my wrestling life has led to my success in that career today and everything else I've done in my life. Things that wrestling has taught me, that's helped me out through my career, is it's taught me how to be physically and emotionally strong. You can't just be physical, you gotta be mentally strong as well. It taught me to be courageous, it taught me to be brave. It taught me that even though if I'm scared of something, that if I face it head on and I do everything in my power to train myself to be ready for it, no matter how I feel at that time, I'm ready for it, and I can win that. It's brought me through a lot of situations out on the road, and it's taught me how to be a quick thinker. And without these traits that I developed throughout the years, I wouldn't be where I am today. And most importantly, it taught me how to be humble. As my father used to always say, walk small but carry a big stick. Lastly, before I go, I've got a few more thank yous that I've got to dish out. First one, he can't be here today, but my brother. My brother and I started wrestling the same age. He was a lot smaller than I was. I mean, a lot smaller. But I tell you what, that little guy, we'd throw our wrestling shoes on in the family room on the carpet. Oh, we'd go crazy. And my dad would actually ref it. And I think Logan remembers that family room too. I think that's where you actually learned how to wrestle, wasn't it? Before you started wrestling in middle school. My brother and I used to watch countless hours of wrestling film. Not to watch what other people were doing, but we'd watch a lot of videos of ourselves and we'd critique ourselves all the time. And it was just so much fun doing that. Sometimes we would be a little too honest with each other. That's brotherly love, but it's what made us better. So I wish he could be here. He lives in Washington State, and but a huge thank you goes out to him, and most importantly to my parents. I had a really good support system growing up. My parents, they didn't know anything about wrestling, but they knew everything about hard work, and they knew everything about if you wanted something, that if you put the work in, that those wants became things that you had. And they passed that down to me, and I'm so thankful for that. Things that people didn't know about my parents was that my mother growing up worked 2 full-time jobs, still made the time to get there on Saturdays for wrestling meets. My dad worked shift work, worked a lot of overtime, still made every wrestling meet. And on top of that, he won a New England championship for bodybuilding. And so one thing that we always did growing up is that we lifted weights with him, because he, again, didn't know anything about wrestling, but he knew everything about hard work. And he said, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. So he had us in the gym 3 days a week. And it wasn't one of those things that we had to be there if we wanted to be there. And sometimes it was at 6 o'clock at night. Sometimes he would call up at 8 o'clock in the morning and says, hey, I'm getting out of work at 4. I'll be there at 4:30 in the morning. Yes, Dad. But without that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And these two showed me what hard work is, and what it takes to achieve the things that you want, and the things that you get. So again, thank you everybody, and thank you for the award.